She started off talking about how the BDSM community has basically these laws, right? That especially consenting like their toys. Very basic laws that we teach our kids all the time about their toys just in general, when it comes to sharing. Um, but it's applicable when it comes to consent.
Hello, everyone. This is Sex Positivity Unfiltered. My name is Lindsay Murray,
And I'm Denise Stratton.
and this is a podcast where we talk about sex and we are not polite about it. And today's episode, we are actually going to be promoting and celebrating some Black creators, Black entrepreneurs, all in the mental health, sex education, sex therapy field. And we're really super excited to promote the people that we have today. Some of them maybe you've heard of, others maybe you haven't heard of. And so we can kind of get you connected with some people that can provide you with the information that we think is really important and helpful.
Last episode, we were mentioning how basically, in order to um, find really good, affordable resources for mental health, that podcasts, influencers, books, things like that are a very good source. So the fact that we're kind of transitioning into now giving them sources, and then especially with Black History Month coming up, that they're all going to be Black creators or Black influencers or Black authors. I think this is going to be a really good episode.
So, Denise, what was it like for you to research and kind of find out some new information even for yourself?
I really enjoyed going down the rabbit hole of the many different mental health podcasts because I got to be honest, I I watch a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I enjoy a lot of these mediums already, but I don't ever really go into the mental health field like
Mhm.
very often. So a lot of my podcasts are more like technology and finance based. So this was fun to really go into the mental health space and see how many influencers there are.
Absolutely, and there's a whole bunch of them. Like, for example, someone I'm gonna share has a really popular Instagram page, and so there's a lot of resources just on their Instagram page. And so even though that information is free to us and to anyone to look at, it is like a lot of their labor that goes into it, you know? So it is an amazing resource because you don't have to pay for it, but it is information that you might get if you were in therapy, right? I'm not saying that replaces therapy or mental health by any means, but they put a lot of effort into it. And so some of them do also have like paid services and paid products and ways that you can pay them for the work that they're doing. And a lot of them that I've looked up is still affordable, right? If you go to one of their workshops or you sign up with them for whatever reason, it's just kind of amazing to see the work that they do.
Hey, well, I'm excited to
Yeah.
see your list. So do we want to go like one, or how do you want to do this one?
Yeah, let's do that. I want you to go first. I wanna
Okay.
see who you looked up.
So, yes, before we go into those sources, I just wanted to address a comment that was left on our last podcast. I used a source by Katie Morton, which is a therapist who's pretty popular on YouTube. I will admit that I didn't know that there were controversies around Miss Morton going into it. So I really do thank the commenter for bringing it to my attention. If I ever see that name up again, as far as that YouTuber, I will likely pass. But just to kind of remind everybody about the format of this podcast, um, Lindsay kind of gives me a prompt every week of something that, we want to both discuss or she wants to discuss with me. And then from there, I start with Google immediately. I also use Wikipedia and YouTube because YouTube is known as one of the best places to find information. So just to be clear, for everybody to know, I'm the idiot on this team. Like I'm the one who I'm coming in with my Google research. I'm learning along with you guys. So I'm just taking the most common resources that I see. So going forward, I will likely use non-credible resources at some point. I will probably likely use some maybe unethical resources. I want you to correct me if I say something wrong or if I use an unethical source, because that's the way for me to learn. And again, I'm learning along with you guys. All right.
Yeah, well, and I had never heard of Katie Morton either, so it was new information to me, and kinda like you, if I see that name now, I know, that they're a harmful source, and, you know, just because I have the education doesn't mean that I know everything either. So I might make mistakes or I might think something is accurate and I might be told otherwise. And that's okay. Because I want to know too. I mean, just like our listeners are learning, so are we. And I'm also doing my own research. I don't, every time we have a topic, I don't always know everything about it. And I have to spend time doing my own research as well. And I might get something wrong. Right. So I take no offense, even if it's coming from you. I know you're saying like you're the idiot. I don't think that at all. We have different backgrounds, but that doesn't mean that like you might know something that I don't, right? Depending on what we're talking about. So same with me. I appreciate the commenter because yeah, I just never heard of that name. So when you said it on the episode, I didn't think anything of it. And we'll just continue trying to do our due diligence to continue to check our sources. And when we mess up, we'll address it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So the first one that I am going to mention, actually I had a little bit of sentimental connection with this one just because the very first episode, the very first prompt we had on this podcast was, what is sex positivity? What's that movement? And when I looked that up on YouTube, this influencer was the first person to pop up. She literally has a video that is what is the sex positive movement. And her name is Nadine Thornhill. She is a sex education mentor and YouTuber. She had a video on 3 things that I don't believe as a sex positive educator. So whenever I'm doing my research, I don't know if you've noticed, Lindsay, but I will research the topic at hand. And then whatever the consensus is, I will also research the rebuttals and like what's not good about this movement or this
Mm-hmm.
topic or anything. So just so I can understand the other side as well. So when she not only had a video of what is a sex positive movement, but also had a video of 3 things that I don't believe as a sex positive educator. I ate it up. And just a little tidbit, that food analogy story that I said on the first episode came from her video. Like
Oh,
it was
wow.
from yeah,
Okay. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So I really enjoyed her. So just a little bit about her background. She has 15 years of experience as a sexual educator. And ironically, it happened by accident. She was actually trying to be an actor and a playwright as well. She took a side job just at a sex store that, ended up kind of carving the path of her into the sex industry. And then because she started like learning about the toys and the acts and everything, she started sharing what she learned about sexuality, and then they asked her to start doing workshops for the store, and then eventually that led her to land a job with, I think it was Planned Parenthood. Yeah, she landed a job
Okay.
with Planned Parenthood. So now she holds a sex education certificate. She has a doctor of education from the Institute for the Advanced Study of Human Sexuality in San Francisco. So absolutely loved her. And her website is fire. Like, as far as a resource goes, this is an insane resource. She answers questions like when is the right time for teens to start having sex?
Oh,
She
wow.
provide yeah, oh, she also provides which I think is really useful, an anti-racist guide to consent, which was
Okay.
very informative. So I'm all these resources, guys, I'll definitely throw it in the description for you to kind of look at it yourself. But absolutely loved her. She's mom, she's queer, she's a child of immigrants. Like everything about her, I was just like, girl, you're my people.
I'm gonna have to go check out her website because
Yeah,
I feel like even with my clients, those are the kind of reasons. Because I have clients that have children too, and they have questions like that. When is the right time? How do I talk to them? Like, what does consent look like? I mean, that's really important information to know that she's putting
loved
out
it.
there. Okay,
Loved it,
awesome.
loved it. Yeah. Good job, Nadine. I use you, girl. I use you. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, I'll go next. The first one that I have is Royal Fetish Films, which I know we've talked about before. But Royal Fetish Films, it's an adult entertainment production company, and it's run by Jet Setting Jasmine and King Noir. And like I said, I know we have talked about them before. But I kind of want to give you a little bit more information on why I want to promote them and why I think the work that they're doing is really great and amazing. So Jet Setting Jasmine, she is a clinical psychotherapist. So she's a therapist similar to me and sees couples and individuals. And she's also a master fetish trainer, professional dominatrix, and of course, co-owner of Royal Fetish Films. And then King Noir, the other owner and director of Royal Fetish Films, and he is a master dom sub trainer. So their production company is really trying to fight the racial stereotypes and the racial harm in the porn industry, which I'll talk a little bit more about here in a second. But there's even an article out there on Paper Mag, which again they'll be in the description. But it's just kind of like how Royal Fetish Films is addressing the porn race problem, which is a big problem. There's a lot of issues with like fetishizing Black people in porn, and they really focus a lot on not what the fetish and the stereotype is of what you traditionally see with like Black people in porn, but they focus on like passion and foreplay and gentle sex and celebrating culture and kind of like creating this safe space for what BIPOC performers actually look like. And so their work is just really, really amazing to me that they're doing this. And they also have, they are Jesse Jasmine and King Noir, they are a couple. So they're together and I believe they have a child together. But they're also polyamorous, if I'm not mistaken about that. So that's how they're sex positive. They're addressing the porn race problem. They're embracing, alternative relationship lifestyles, and they do it in a very ethical, healthy, safe way, and they educate on it. I actually was in a training with them back when I was in the process of getting my sex therapy certification. It was through the Sexual Health Alliance, which they have a relationship with. And part of the training that they were in, they were talking about like age appropriate ways to talk about sex with your kids. And they actually have an Instagram page that is called Sex Positive Parenting. So that's something that's really interesting to check out because what better people to talk about that than them? Because that's their wheelhouse. And so I remember in that training it was interesting hearing from especially Jet Setting Jasmine because she has like older children and and her daughter was there too, who is an adult now, but was on there too. And apparently she's always been sex positive with her kids. Always. Like, from a very young
Hey.
age, it's never been a taboo topic for them. So, they're the first ones I wanted to promote just because I think what they do is so cool.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Yeah, you're the first one when starting this podcast. You were like, "You have to see these people." So I immediately got on and I went to them. And not only is their education really awesome, but they're both very attractive individuals, extremely
Oh,
attractive.
they are a very hot couple. Very you can see why they're together because yeah, very, very attractive. And
Yes.
what's so interesting, I shouldn't say interesting because it's gonna sound like I'm, like, judging attractive people, and I'm not trying to. They are very attractive, but they're very humble about it, and I can tell you that just from, like, the times I've talked to them in these trainings. Um, King Noir has said something before that was like because they're in the porn they're porn actors. They're directors and they own the production company, but they're also, like, actors in their films, and they're also very attractive. People have this assumption that because they have sex with multiple different people that they just wanna have sex with everyone. And he's like, "Just because I work in porn does not mean I wanna have sex with you." Like,
Damn right.
it's yeah, that's not it doesn't mean I wanna have it with everyone, but, they're just, I don't know, really cool, down to earth, extremely smart people, and I'll
So
promote them all day.
did you get to actually meet them? Like meet them? Like,
It was a Zoom training,
oh,
so I
okay.
didn't get to meet them in person, and when I say I talked to them, they probably don't even remember me. It was like I had a question, they like that kind of back and forth, but I'll say I met them. Just
Hey.
yeah, like, I got to talk to them.
Yeah, no, I love them. I listened to their YouTube, I guess YouTube podcast for a little bit and it was really really informative. They were actually the
Mhm.
ones who right like literally the day before you told me about the love languages, they're the ones who basically informed me that the love languages guy is problematic. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
education is great. Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. So my number two, is recently founded actually. So I was doing some research, and this TED Talk just kept coming up just immediately as soon as I put in, mental health, sex education, things like that immediately. So her name is Kaz, or she goes by Kaz. Her name's Karen Lucas, aka Kaz. She's an activist and also a musician, and she has a website called kazentertainment.com. Now, I love TED Talks. I don't know if you're the same type of person. I'm the weird type of person who actually enjoys being lectured to, especially if it's on a topic that I'm, interested in.
I enjoy TED Talks too. I think you probably watch more videos than I do. I don't know if it's just an ADHD thing or what, but I depending on the video, my attention can go off really quickly, but I love TED Talks because when it's a good TED Talk, the 20, 30 minutes flies it's like I blink and I'm like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I watched that whole video."
Yes. So yeah. So I saw her said TED Talk. The TED Talk in general, if you search it up, it's called Sex Education Should Start with Consent,
Mm.
which in the sex positive movement, obviously consent is like in big flashing fireworks, consent is there. So uh during her talk, she's basically saying how, consent is really important. And for some reason, us, especially as adults, we don't really know how to talk about sex. And then we also, at the same time, don't know how to talk to our kids about sex, right? And we don't know how to discuss these things. We don't know when an appropriate age is. A lot of these, as far as like, parents go, a lot of these questions are constantly on their mind as soon as their kid is getting into like the adolescence ages, right? So she started off talking about how the BDSM community has basically these laws, right? That especially consenting like their toys, right? So it was and whenever she was talking about how, there's these certain laws like you don't touch anybody's toys without permission.
Mhm.
Don't touch anybody else without their permission. Always ask, like just these very basic laws that we teach our kids all the time about their toys, just in general, when it comes to sharing. But it's applicable when it comes to consent, right? So, and she makes it very a point that she obviously doesn't want to teach kids BDSM, but it's weird that we have like these laws that are in this community that's overly sexualized. And these are basic principles that we get taught on the playground whenever we're 4 or 5. So I really resonated with her just in general in her TED Talk. I loved it. But a little bit of background with her and just what she's doing right now. She's known for being on the show Project Fame, which I
Hmm.
don't know,
No,
but
I've never heard of that.
we'll flash it up here for the people who are seeing the video. But yeah, she began her career in 1997 as a rapper and a singer, focusing her lifelong passion for changing the way young people are taught about sex. She started a podcast called The Spread. I listened to the podcast. It's a very sex positive podcast. It focuses on providing a straightforward, comprehensive sexuality and consent education. So when I'm listening to her podcast, it was very informative. I love getting a dive into her guests because she always has a guests on and like just their perspectives. She caters towards the Kenyan community, like the
Okay.
Pan-African community. But to be honest, her lessons that she is sharing, I think is good for everybody. So
Mhm.
I just absolutely love how she ties basically consent and permission, and she wants to basically start with the kids and teach them about consent when it just comes to, their own toys, to their own bodies. Everyone should be asking you permission in order to either touch a place on your body or to get a toy from you, right? So
Right. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I think when the message is inclusive, it is for everybody. That's the whole point, right? Is like when you're tailoring to even like a specific group, but it's with the intention of being inclusive, everyone can gain something from that knowledge. It's interesting, talking about consent and always making sure that you have it. Have you seen these videos on TikTok of the barber or the hairdresser, maybe that's a better term, but the hairdresser who asks her clients if she can touch them, like, touch their hair first. Have you seen that?
no,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, she'll ask, like, "Hey, is it okay if I is it okay if we sorry, is it okay if I touch you now?" Touching meaning, like, your hair, right at the back of your head, stuff like that. And they say yes, right? And, like, there's been a lot of backlash against those videos 'cause people are kinda making fun of her, like, "Well, obviously you can touch them, they're there for a haircut." But I personally love asking for consent because the what I think of is when you go to the doctor and, like, you get a pap smear, I know you're gonna touch my private parts, but I still would like you to let me know that you're about to do that. Like, "Hey, are you ready? Can I go ahead and start the exam? Can I go ahead?" Like, a good doctor would do that even though you know it's gonna happen, right? You don't wanna just be shocked.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go on a tiny tangent when it
Sure.
comes to I'm interested that you brought up the pap smear, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, so do you know the podcast This American Life?
Yes, I don't know if I've ever heard it, like, actually listened to it, but I have heard of it.
Yeah, it's hosted by Ira Glass. Amazing podcast, very one of the OGs in our podcasting world, right? It's been
Okay.
around forever. So I started listening to it a couple years ago. Really interesting. One of the episodes that literally my jaw hit the ground like immediately after listening to this episode, and it was about basically the medical industry and how women would go in for maybe a procedure or whatever when it comes to, maybe it wasn't a pap smear, but they would go into some procedure to where they had to be put down. And what a lot of people don't know is apparently there they a lot of doctors in the medical industry would use them being unconscious, use this time as a training exercise, right? So then they would bring, their trainees in, their medical students in, and while the woman is unconscious, they would teach them basically how to do a pap smear. But no one for the first couple, years of this being done, like not until like maybe recently, I'm talking about like in the past decade or so, did they ever ask for consent, right?
What?
Yeah, no, you can look this up. Like this is
Oh,
literally like
I believe it, I believe it. That is fucked up.
yeah, so it wasn't until students started feeling uncomfortable with it, and there was this one student who, in her, I guess, her medical dissertation or some big research paper, she decided to basically confront this because she said, when she was training, she saw this woman unconscious, and the doctor just casually was like, "Yeah, no, all right, so go, and perform a Pap smear. Let me make sure that it's doing right." And she felt icky, right,
Yeah, of
going,
course.
exactly, and she brought it to the attention of you know, all her mentors, and she was like, "Yeah, no, that's how it's done, right?" Um, and so when she went to go fight it, yeah, she was met with a lot of backlash because, this is how the trainings are always done, and if she brings it to the attention, then there will be less people who are willing to consent to this training, and which means that a lot of less doctors are going to get their training and things like this. And I remember hearing this episode and thinking like, no, I mean, to be honest, if someone were to ask me if they can train on me, I probably would have said yes, no problem.
Well,
But
yeah,
I
and
want to be
the
fucking asked.
right, I wanna know, and the whole thing about consent is they're probably right, like, they wouldn't get as many people to practice on, but that's the whole point, is that you only practice on people that are willing to do that. Like, if it's less people, you're gonna have to work around that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
and the first
crazy.
student who brought it up, like the main student guy, he made a really good point that when the doctor was like, "Hey, go and perform your training on this unconscious woman," he's like, "As a man, I'm going in and I have my fingers inside of this woman. Like as I was performing this procedure, all I kept thinking was, what if she wakes up?
Right, she's
Like
gonna wonder what you're doing. Oh my
like
gosh.
yeah, yeah. So when you said, pap smear in the medical industry and, you go in there thinking that you get consent, it brought up that quick memory and I was just like, well, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apologies for
Ah.
my tangent.
No, no, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it. Everything that you mentioned about Kaz, like, it's just on par with that whole concept of consent, so, alright, that's a go out I'm gonna check them out too. Uh, the next one that I have is her name is Shamira, but on Instagram, she goes by Sexologist Shamira,
Mm.
and, I think that's just her handle, it's just at Sexologist Shamira. I would definitely recommend following her because she's one of those people that consistently has Instagram stories, posts, graphics, information, videos, just super, super educational in nature, and she's really good at what she does, right? The way that she explains things, the content that she makes. I've even had clients, I've recommended her page to clients before. Just as that you just get constant educational information about sex, sexual health. She is a certified sex therapist like I am, so she's also a therapist as well. So not only is she providing the sexual education content, but she is a therapist by nature and has the mental health background and really good at information, combining the two. And she is also a doctor of social work, a licensed clinical social worker, and a professor, and a sex and relationship expert. And so she's been on, her profile says TV and media personality. I think she's been on uh, multiple publications, with her practice and her work. She also has, if you go to her website, she has like a dating e-guide, which I think could be really good for someone that maybe just wants information on how to date in current times and what to look out for. And then she also has this card deck that is called Use Your Mouth, and it's ways to talk about sex. And so
Okay.
it kind of gets the questions going. I actually have her, hold on. Yeah, here I'm gonna like, this is what it looks like. Ooh. Yeah, use your mouth.
Interesting.
Because
Use your
I bought this
mouth.
card deck from her a while back. Um,
Okay.
but it just has questions, right? Like some of them are kind of more mild and tame, and maybe some are a little bit more spicy, but um just questions like what have you learned about yourself in the past 6 months, right? Stuff like that. So she's also really cool. Like her customer service with buying something from her is really good because when I bought this card deck, I think it was like 20 bucks, which isn't bad at all. Um, but I never received it. Like I was charged for it and I never received it, even though it said like I should have received it. And I was able to message her directly. And not only did she resend the card, she refunded my money, which I didn't ask her to do. But she was like, you should have gotten it by now. You didn't. We're gonna make this right. So, and just another cool
Hey,
little interaction I've had with her. She's pretty amazing, so
that's badass. Okay.
mhm,
Okay, Miss Sexologist. Yeah, I remember you bringing her to my attention as well. Like, yeah, it's good.
mhm.
Enjoyed. I enjoyed. Okay. So my last one, um, I definitely wanted to give some actual experts in the field and everything, but this one I wouldn't consider him an expert per se as far as like the education goes, but he's been dealing with his own mental health and also has been teaching and sharing his mental health journey for so long that I would definitely see him as a really good resource. And this one's going to surprise you. His name is Trent Shelton. He
Mhm.
is a previous NFL wide receiver. He is now a podcaster, motivational speaker, author. So this guy was recommended to me by a friend. I pretty much saw her liking all of his posts many, many years ago. Um, and he's a source that you wouldn't normally see me, I guess, listen to or recommend just because currently he's the founder and the president of a Christian based nonprofit organization.
Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I have nothing wrong with, Christian based organizations whatsoever. It's just not it's usually not the algorithm that my it's usually not the sources that my algorithm provides for me. So he's kind of an outlier there. But he has this beautiful organization called Rehab Time, and that's where I first saw him. So he got his start in March of 2009. He started making like these 2-minute videos to track his progress on bettering his own life, and he would always end the video with the coin phrase, it's rehab time. And what I like about him is he's a local, so he's from Fort Worth here in
Oh,
Texas, right?
cool.
Yeah. And the reason that I discovered him was I was going through heartbreak. I was going through some rough breakups. Like, and this was I discovered him during my first heartbreak, my first really serious heartbreak. And then I had my second serious heartbreak probably, less than a year later. So I was in a really dark place and he was on Instagram and he would post like a meme a day. And him being big on mental health and treating yourself with self compassion, it would always be like some quote that's like, broken crowns still color the same, right? So, basically, yeah, you're broken, it's fine, but you're fine, right? Something went wrong, but you're still going to be okay. So I loved his words. I loved how empowering his affirmations were. And then he does these little, just really awesome interactive things with his audience. So, like, he'll pray with you. Like he'll throw on, basically an Instagram reel and just like do a little prayer and start it with like, if you needed this today, here you go. Um, and since seeing him from years ago, I had to mention him as a really good source if you're looking for just, that pick me up or maybe that empowering affirmation today. I loved him. And I do know that now he's like a published author of multiple books, a lot of self-help books. So yeah, so I use him when I felt disappointed in other people, or like I failed at something. And he's just great at motivation and showing you that you're not broken. So Trent Shelton
Okay.
from the NFL world, hey.
I love it. Okay, yeah, I've never heard of him, and the fact that he's local, I mean, I don't really follow the NFL too much, but,
Yeah.
well, I'll check him out for sure. That's a nice comfort to have when you're going through a
Mhm.
hard time.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, his words spoke to my soul. So I recommend him all day, every day. Your third?
My 3rd, yes. So the 3rd one that I have, her name is Vanessa Giffard, and she is the founder of a company called Vag-Esteem. And I'm gonna give you the, definition of Vag-Esteem, and this was directly from her website. Like, what does Vag-Esteem mean? And it's the concept by which one builds the confidence of or in their vulva and vagina. And this confidence leads to a healthy and satisfying sex life. And on her website, which is just we'll post it in the description, but it's badgesteam.com. She offers a workshop series and also has a podcast that teaches folks with vaginas how to have a good and healthy sex life through courageous conversations, which I think is just so important for anyone to learn how to do that. And some information about her. So Vanessa is a health educator and she's the vice president of education and outreach at Planned Parenthood of Maryland. Again, the founder of Badge Esteem, and is also the creator of Sex Ed for Black Girls and Femmes. And her podcast, which I believe is just called Badge Esteem Podcast, offers educational information. And then her workshop, of course, are similar to health courses. So I think she just provides information and kind of like how to's of how to be confident in your body and your vagina and your vulva and what that means for your sex life. So, really important work that she's doing, and also pretty cool that she is very involved with Planned Parenthood, which I think is really
Hey.
important work to do.
No, that's
Mhm.
awesome. Yeah, veg esteem. Definitely added to my vocabulary today, and I'm definitely gonna use that.
Yes, absolutely. I thought it was pretty cool. Pretty good way to put it, her little definition on her site.
Hey. All right. Before we decide to close it out, I absolutely love this deep dive into mental health and everything. But just for I guess the overall theme of the episode is the fact that these are about Black creators, right? Black
Mhm.
influencers, and I don't have as many mental health influencers in my algorithm, but I do have a decent amount of Black influencers in my algorithm. So I really want to take this time to really shout these people out because they help
Mhm.
me out. So if you guys are looking for, African American, Black resources, people of color resources, these helped me. So the first one I had to, I almost picked her as one of my like three, but she was not really on the theme of mental health, kind of in a way, but not really. But it's Swoop. I've mentioned Swoop to
Mhm.
you many times in the past. And for you guys who are listening to this on audio, just throwing this out there. This might be a good video podcast just in general because I am going to throw all of the resources of the pictures of these people. I'm going to throw their channels up here just so you can kind of see if they have any books or anything like that. So graphically, there will be a decent amount of resources flashing across the screen for the people who are watching this on YouTube. But anyway, all right. So yeah, Swoop. So Swoop is a YouTube channel. She has actually two YouTube channels, one called Swoop, one called Swoop 2, which is for the cesspool. And she basically just goes into deep dives on social media and influencers. She's known as more of a true crime documentarian. So yeah, she does these deep dives on these influencers and shows how sus they are, the controversies that are surrounding them. And what I love about her documentaries in general is that they are based in teaching you mental health education. So, for example, she covered Andrew Tate, right? And in there, she actually defines toxic masculinity. She'll go into what an incel means. Like she definitely breaks down the mental health aspect along with covering the true crime part of the documentary, which
Mm.
for someone who is a true crime person and who also has a mental health podcast, it just speaks to all of my avenues. I absolutely love this creator. So definitely go check out Swoop. The other one I'm going to give more on the queer aspect of YouTube, or actually more of TikTok. Her name is Brie Geiger. She is a Black performer, musician, comedian. She does a lot of local shows in LA. Really funny stand up. So if you really like, you're into comedy, you're into stand up, I would say that she is definitely one of the funniest people, just off the cuff that
Mhm.
I've ever heard in my ear. The next one I'm going to give is Joshua Mayo. Now, for my finance people out there, I had to give this guy because he's on the come up of YouTube, but he has made a huge name for himself already. Taught himself how to code in 3 weeks just off of YouTube. And now he's like a multimillionaire and he teaches you pretty much ways to make money, whether it's YouTube on a side gig, how to set up affiliate marketing. Like his biggest theme on YouTube is he wants his audience to watch his videos and be able to have another income source from that video. So he's great. I actually set up my Etsy store based on his video. So he helped me out a lot. Love Joshua Mayo. Big, big finance guy. Great. And then segue onto that is Roberto Blake. Roberto Blake, also another YouTube channel for those of you who are into being a YouTuber or you're trying to set up any type of graphic design or any type of like social media. Great resource. He teaches you basically how to go viral on YouTube or how to set up a thumbnail on YouTube. The reason I have a lot of the thumbnail styles that I do that you see on this podcast is because of Roberto Blake. So
Mm.
thank you, Mr. Blake, 'cause you've been a really good resource. And then the other two that I just will mention real quick is Matthew Reed is a videographer that's also on YouTube who I used for my wedding, and he was amazing. So if you're in the Austin, San Antonio area, I highly recommend him. Look up his YouTube videos; they will make you cry. And then Rudy Francisco is also a poet. I also have a little bit of a sentimental attachment to him because his poetry hits you deep, like hits you really deep as far as relationships goes. And I actually used his poem to kind of help propose to my wife. So a little bit of sentimental there as well. So I mean, there's some good Black creators, at least from the girl who is constantly on YouTube. I just had to share some YouTubers for you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I've not heard of a lot of those people, so I
Cool.
appreciate you sharing that 'cause it's new for me too.
Good, good. All right.
Hey,
Um,
cool. Anything else?
no, girl, I mean, that's pretty much it. We shared a decent amount of resources. I hope the audience appreciates it. I hope you check out a little bit of new people. I know it's hard to break out from your normal subscriptions that you subscribe to, but yeah, go check out someone new.
Yeah, and if you do check out someone new, let us know what you thought. Let us know if you've heard of any of these people, if any of this is new information to you. Definitely like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll continue to have new content coming out here soon that we're excited to share with y'all. So, we are Sex Positivity Unfiltered, and remember to stay curious and fuck politeness.